Hi, I'm Todd Jones, host of the podcast Pressbox Access. Here's a clip from my interview with Terence Moore. Terence gives us insight into the baseball legend Hank Aaron. They developed a special relationship over many years together in Atlanta. You mentioned a guy who supported you from the get-go in Atlanta, and he's a guy who also could relate to some of what you were dealing with, and that's Henry Aaron. But you knew Henry Aaron way beyond the tributes. You knew what he dealt with, especially in 1974 when he was on the way to breaking Babe Ruth, when he did break Babe Ruth's home run record. But you got to talk to Aaron many, many times over the last 40 years. Tell us about your relationship with Henry Aaron and why that was so special.
Well, and again, not to bury the lead, I'll just get right to it. One of the biggest thrills I had, which was an unfortunate thrill, and maybe thrill is not the right word, I should say honor, was the day that Hank died. I got a call from Billy Aaron, his widow, who asked me to be one of his honorary pallbearers. And immediately I just thought about something that you can't see it, but on my wall here, I have a poster, huge poster. It almost looks like an oil painting. And there's a poster of Hank Aaron. Actually, I got two of them. I got one of Hank Aaron. I got one of Pete Rose. And growing up, Pete Rose and Hank Aaron were my two favorite players. And when I was 12 years old, when we first moved to Cincinnati, I bought these posters, saved up my, strawberry milkshake money and model car money to get these two posters, Pete Rose, Hank Aaron. And I was just thinking to myself, when you asked me that, here I go from this 12-year-old fan who has this poster of Hank Aaron that I've carried with me everywhere. I've had it in all the places we lived, from Cincinnati to Chicago to Milwaukee. Took it with me to Miami of Ohio, my dorm room at Dennison Hall freshman year and Hepburn Hall my sophomore, junior, senior year. Took it back to Cincinnati when I worked there, the Inquirer, to San Francisco, now in Atlanta. So I go from that to being a person who talked to Hank Aaron more than any sports journalist in history, to being his honorary pallbearer. That was just fast. That was just fascinating. And we had a very good relationship. I mean, he'd call me up and I'll tell you this, Todd. During the Barry Bonds situation, for instance, he wanted nothing to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I became his designated spokesperson, and everybody knew it. I mean,
to be clear, we're talking about the whole steroid angle.
Yes,
that story, and Aaron really, like you said, stayed away from commenting about that.
That's exactly right. So, matter of fact, and I can't think of his name, but one of the legendary writers for Sports Illustrated wanted to do a story with Hank Aaron about Barry Bonds. Couldn't get Hank because Hank was just dodging it. So he ended up talking to me about Hank and what he thought about Barry Bonds. So it was like that. And so this went on for like a whole year or so. So whenever I would appear on television, ESPN or CNN or whatever, Hank would call me up, or I'll call up Hank, and Hank would like laugh, like, "Hey, I saw you." Yeah, you did a good job. Yeah, that's what I would have said. Yep. Yeah. So that's the kind of relationship we had.
What did you respect most about Aaron?
Well, what I respected most about Aaron was, and we were alike in so many ways, which is why we got along very well. He was a man of deep convictions. And because of those deep convictions, a lot of people sort of misunderstood what he was all about. And what I meant by that is I've written columns about this since his death. People are trying to rewrite history now. And I find it offensive because they're trying to make it seem like, okay, was Hank Aaron a nice guy? Oh, no doubt about it. Was he soft-spoken? Yeah, he was. Was he a guy that smiled a lot? Yeah, that he was all that. But you know what? He was tough as nails. Mm-hmm. And when he had something to say, particularly when it came to racism and baseball, racism in general, he said it boldly and loudly, okay? And now what's happened over the last few years, people are trying to make it seem like, oh, he was like this docile guy and so on and so forth. But they don't remember, because I was there, because usually when he would blast baseball or society, I was a person that would be a spokesperson or get it out there, either in print or on the airways. He was being ripped like crazy by people, okay, fans in general, the media, some of the same writers are talking about, oh, well, Hank was such a nice guy. Well, you weren't saying that 10 or 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I call it the Muhammad Ali thing. And I've written about this before too. Muhammad Ali was a guy that during the last 15 to 20 years of his life, it was like, oh, what a great guy, blah, blah, blah. People want to pose with him, and particularly white folks. You know, they looked at him as being this, oh, he's such a great guy, so on and so forth. So wait a minute now. I'm old enough to remember when I was growing up, because I grew up in mostly white schools, hearing white folks call this guy everything but the son of God. They hated this guy, okay?
Right.
And all the way through. So what was the difference? What happened with Hank and what happened with Muhammad Ali? It was very simple. What happened was when they, and this happens with a lot of black people in general, unfortunately, once you become harmless in the eyes of certain whites, then it becomes fashionable to rally around them. Once Muhammad Ali was unable to basically speak, he had the Parkinson's disease, and he was just like more for the cameras. Like, you know, once he became that Muhammad Ali, then all of a sudden he's a great guy. Okay. Once Hank never became feeble per se, but once Hank was sort of out of the spotlight that he was before in his earlier days with the Braves, and they just saw him smiling or throwing out the first pitches at games or waving from the owner's box or what have you, then that became the Hank Aaron that they wanted to remember for the rest of their life. And one more thing along Hank Aaron's line. Hank, and I've written this many times before, Hank Aaron, his idol was Jackie Robinson. And Jackie Robinson, everybody thinks about April 15th, 1947, and they forget about the rest of Jackie Robinson.
Right.
Jackie Robinson was LeBron James way before LeBron James. He would talk about outspoken. Oh, my goodness. I mean, he marched with Dr. King. He spoke out against injustices. His last speech, Jackie Robinson, I'm a Jackie Robinson enthusiast, as you can tell. His last speech, October of 1972, before Game 2 of the 1972 World Series in Cincinnati, baseball thought they were doing Jackie Robinson a favor by honoring him, you know, because it was one of the anniversaries, maybe I can't do math that fast, 25th anniversary, I guess, of him breaking the color barrier. And so instead of giving this nice farewell to baseball speech in something like 35 seconds, Jackie rips baseball for not having a black manager up to that point and not having a black third base coach, which would lead to being a black manager. I mention that because a couple of weeks after that, Jackie Robinson died.
Yeah.
And that's when Hank Aaron said, you know what? I am going to take over for Jackie Robinson. I am going to be the guy that speaks out like Jackie Robinson did. And that is exactly what Hank Aaron did. And he did it forever. And people disliked him strongly for that.
He was like the conscience of the game.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Hey, Todd, I can tell you're a columnist. That's a good. I like that. I'm going to steal that. That's good.